Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.
Hey Krishna. Welcome all for the morning Bhagavatam sessions. Today we will hear from His Holiness, it's a recorded class by His Holiness Chandramouli, Swami Maharaj. And the topic is the activities of Lord Rishabdev from Canto 5, Chapter 6, Shloka number 6. I'll play the recorded class.
Translation. And the chapter is The Activities of Lord Rishabdev. It's Canto 5, Chapter 6, and this is text number 6. So the last class I think we had was at least a week ago. So those of you who are following, the previous verses dealt with the nature of the mind. Now the theme changes at this point here. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Try to clearly translation, purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Lord Rishabdev was the head of all kings and emperors within this universe. But, assuming the dress and language of an avaduta, he acted as if dull and materially bound. Consequently, no one could observe his divine opulence. He adopted this behavior just to teach yogis how to give up the body. Nonetheless, he maintained his original position as plenary expansion of Lord Vasudeva, Krishna. Remaining always in that state, he gave up his pastimes as Lord Rishabdev in the material world. If, following in the footsteps of Lord Rishabdev, one can give up his subtle body, there is no chance that one will again accept a material body. Purport. As Lord Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita 4.9, Janma karma chame divyam eva yo veti tadvataham taktva deham param janma naiti mameti sorjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activity does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. This is possible simply by keeping oneself an eternal servant of the Supreme Lord. One must understand his constitutional position and the constitutional position of the Supreme Lord as well. Both have the same spiritual identity. Maintaining oneself as a servant of the Supreme Lord, one should avoid rebirth in the material world. If one keeps himself spiritually fit and thinks himself as an eternal servant of the Supreme Lord, he will be successful at the time he has to give up his material body. In this verse, Lord Rishabhdev, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, playing the role of a king, but not forgetting his position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, maintaining that consciousness of his awareness of his existence, he gives up his body. So Prabhupada uses that example to explain how to achieve the goal of life. That one must always be aware of one's position, or one's nature, we might say. Jiver Surupai Nitya Krishna Das. The scriptures explain that every living being is qualitatively one with the Supreme Lord, but in the role of a servant. In the role of a servant. Ekala Isha Krishna Asabrita. There is only one master, and that is Krishna. Every living being, no matter what material body they may have, they are nothing but the eternal servant of the Lord. This is the absolute truth. When the living entities fall to the material world, they forget their identity. And they're covered by this energy called Maya, or illusory energy. And they mistakenly take on another identity, according to the particular type of body they have. And that identity is completely contrary to their nature. The nature is that I'm eternal servant of the Lord, but now I have a material body and a material identity with that body. So in that, what we say, illusionary state of the existence, the living entity thinks themselves, instead of servant of the Lord, master of the material energy, or competitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Bhokta. He's the supreme enjoyer in all situations. It's explained throughout the scriptures that everything is meant for the pleasure of the Lord. The Lord is the source of all existence. All existence emanates from Him. And therefore, all existence is meant to serve His will. And that is the absolute principle. So forgetting that position, or forgetting that eternal identity, the living entity tries to act in the same way the Supreme Lord acts, that is, to be the controller and the enjoyer. And so, in that illusionary state, one forgets that I'm servant, and one tries to be controller or master of the material energy. But this is, because it's a false position, this position causes great difficulty for the living entity to try to attain. Therefore, material life simply means hard struggle. Hard struggle to be something you're not. To try to become the master, or the controller, or the ultimate principle of enjoyment. And therefore, everyone is working so hard to be something they can't be. This is material energy. But in that state of struggling to be that, the illusionary energy dictates that actually you are. You are the controller. You are the master. You are the enjoyer. And so the living entity is pushed by the same energy that he's trying to control to think that he is actually something he's actually not. Therefore, he's working so hard to be something he's not. But what happens is that rather than being the controller and enjoyer of the material energy, he becomes controlled by that same energy that he tries to control. People talk about freedom, they talk about, liberation, they talk about, being able to fulfill their desires. So in that, they accumulate, or they put themselves in different positions. That I am mother, I'm father, I'm Indian, I'm American, I'm male, I'm female, I have this social position, I have this political position, and all these what we say upadhis, or designations, identities, that one takes on in order to enjoy. But they become controlled by that, and they're forced to act according to that identity, but they're, rather than enjoying in that position, they're struggling so hard. This is material life. It doesn't take much to see that, how people are just working so hard, struggling so hard, endeavoring so hard, trying so hard, simply to try to find some kind of happiness in this false position. And they accumulate things. And nowadays people are accumulating what we say material possessions. It's the biggest thing in the world now, is to have more material possessions. So they spend so much time and energy working for some person who gives them some money. So therefore they're sacrificing their time, their energy, in order to do some work for someone else. Good part of their days, they're working very hard. Actually, a living being is not meant to work hard. Rishabdev, in the beginning of this, actually the previous chapter, he says that hogs and dogs, they work hard. Human beings don't. They're not supposed to work hard. Therefore, to work hard simply for what we call sense gratification is the business of hogs and dogs. Because animals don't know better. Therefore, they're forced to endeavor according to their nature, being completely under the control of the material energy. So the living entity in the same position as the enjoyer is working so hard, simply like an animal, just to get what? A few little drops of some satisfaction, which is ultimately gone in due course of time. So in that, they're struggling so hard to make money, right? To make money. You can get as much happiness. Money can't bring you happiness. This is an illusion, the idea that money will bring happiness. Money can give you facility to interact with the material energy in a greater way, a greater or lesser way, but it can't bring happiness. Nothing material can bring happiness. Your money can actually bring you suffering. It's explained in the, the story of the Avanti Brahman in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavata. Here's a person, before he became the Avanti Brahman, he was a wealthy merchant. And he had so much money, but he was a very cruel person. Nobody liked him. But because he had a lot of money, people stayed around him to get his money. His family members, they tolerated him. simply because he had a lot of money. His friends also. They say if you have a lot of money, you have a lot of friends, but really they're friends of your money, not you. I was talking to yesterday to one devotee, how in the West, young ladies who are looking for husbands, they have ways of advertising their desires, different ways. So in the West, on the cars, they have what is called bumper stickers. There's a bumper sticker. And usually there's different sayings on the bumper stickers. Some of them are funny, some of them are actually very good philosophy. Some of them are totally ridiculous. So on this one bumper sticker that ladies put on their car, if you're rich, I'm available. If you're rich, I'm available. This is how they find husbands. So, they're not looking for the person, they're looking for the extra benefits, or the main thing. And then after some time they get married, and then they get divorced, and the woman gets all the money, and howdy well. So this is what usually happens. So money brings about so much problems. People who have a lot of money, they have the most problems. So this Avanti Brahmin, at one point in his life, he lost everything. His materially good fortune changed according to his destiny, and he became totally bereft of all his finances. And therefore everyone left him, because no one liked him anyway. And therefore he had nothing to offer them now. So his family members, his friends, and people in general, remembering all his cruelty, tried to get back at him by spitting on him and cursing him and doing so many things. But he accepted it as the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And actually, he became completely detached from everything because he saw that this was the hand of the Lord, and he accepted it. But in that story, it explains that there are 15 negative material characteristics that come with money. 15. Lust, feverishness, anxiety, possessiveness, enmity, and the list goes on and on. Envy. I can't remember all of them. The list is there's 15 listed in that. I don't have much money, so I don't really count for this particular list. But it's interesting. If you look it up, you'll see. And it's a fact. The materialistic people who have a lot of wealth, they are completely controlled by that wealth, and therefore they're suffering. What they strive to succeed in getting in their life becomes the source of their suffering. This is material life. Whether it's money, material possessions, or a type of sense gratification, it works against the good fortune of the living entity simply to cause him more and more suffering. And people struggle so hard just to suffer. I remember Radhanath Maharaj uses the example. It's a nice example to explain the nature of a person of that path. He used the example that there is a weightlifter or a muscle man, and he's just working out and he's trying to get big muscles, and he spends most of his time, doing all kinds of calisthenics and lifting weights, and he becomes very strong. And then when he develops big muscles, he punches himself in the face. In other words, what he achieves simply becomes a source of his own suffering. So this is material life. Everyone is trying to be the controller and trying to enjoy as much as possible. And therefore, no one is happy in the material world. we should not be fooled by, with the achievements of the non-devotees in terms of their position in the material world. Sometimes they look very happy, but really it's some external show. They're very busy. People are busy. That's for sure. The mode of passion is the mode of hard struggle to acquire things. So therefore people are very active, and it looks like they're very enthusiastic to gain what they are seeking. And that enthusiasm is there because its mode of passion just pushes them to strive so hard to get what they want. But as far as happiness is concerned, that's something else. It doesn't come by something external. And the scriptures even say that those in the material world, they don't have to worry about their material happiness and their material distress. It comes. Tasyaivo hetu pradite na kovito, na labhyate ta brahmata uparyada, ta labhyate dukadava anya sukham kalena gambira samklena sarvatra gambira ramhasa. Very nice verse spoken by Narada Muni in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the first canto, where he explains that your distress, nobody tries for distress, but it comes. Nobody makes plans to be miserable, but still people get suffering. They get distress. They get reverses in their life. So happiness is the same thing. It comes simply by one's collective karma. So one doesn't have to worry. Therefore, the beginning of the verse is, don't strive for anything in this material world. Strive for that transcendental world. Strive for that which is not part of this material energy. So here, again, the point is one has to understand one's position, that I am servant. Now, taking the same principle into the spiritual realm, we have to understand that even in the spiritual realm, we can forget our position as servant. It's easy because we're coming from that background of being the enjoyer, the controllers. So when we come into spiritual life, that conditioned nature is there. So we may also achieve a position, or we may achieve some remuneration or something. We may be temple president, or we may be temple commander, or we may be sannyasi, or maybe guru, or we may be GBC, or we may be something, what we say, recognized position. But again, that is also external. Even the 4 varnas and the 4 ashrams are all external. Sannyas, brahmachari, grihastha, vanapras, and then of course the varnas also too, the occupations, the material occupations. Lord Chaitanya very clearly made this point in Gopi Bhartu Padakamalayur Dasu Dasu Anudas after negating all the external designations of the varnas and ashrams. He says, what am I? I am simply the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the damsels of Raj. In other words, my position is servant. We see even in the life of the Lord and His Leela in this earth, He enjoys becoming the servant. He takes the position of the servant. He takes the position of Srimati Radharani, who is the Aladini Shakti, who is serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead and Bhagavan Shri Krishna in Vrindavan. And in that position, he's experiencing unlimited happiness. So even the Supreme Personality of Godhead enjoys becoming the servant. There's one statement where the Lord is being glorified. I can't remember the exact reference, but the Lord is glorified for being the Lord. And the Lord responds, He says, do you know why people glorify me? It's because, not because I'm God, but because I'm the servant of my devotees. So the position of the servant is actually very glorious. Of course, if you speak about being a servant in the material world, that's like a bad word. Servant. Oh, boy. Nobody uses that word, servant. Nobody wants to be another person's servant. Everyone wants to be served by someone else. Or people serve in order to get something from that service. They may accept the position of servant and only to be the controller and enjoyer at the same time. So it's all artificial in the material world. But in the spiritual circles, in the spiritual world, the position of service is the highest position one can attain. Srila Prabhupada says that. He says, servant 100 times removed. In one lecture he says that the more one becomes aware of their position of servant and acts in that position, then one is more, what we say, most rightly situated. So we should never forget that is our position, servant. We cannot be anything else. But it's the greatest. And here, what is that? That by acting in that position of servant, and one can understand the relationship between the Lord and himself. One cannot understand the Lord unless one understands themselves first as servant of the Lord. It's not possible. People have, in the material world, there's a lot of what we say religiosity, or what we say external religious principles that people talk about God. They talk about God and they talk about religion, they talk about spirituality, but still they maintain the position of being the enjoyer. So it's all mental speculation. They have no understanding of the nature of the Lord, nor how the Lord is working. And you see in the material world, when something goes wrong, the biggest philosophical, things come out. Why did God do that? And then they have this big debate. Right? It was tsunami, right? And for weeks, some of the greatest thinkers were discussing, why did this happen? Well, why did it? And everybody's got their opinion. Because nobody knows. They claim to be religious people, they claim to be following, but they just have some superficial understanding. Unless one understands their position as eternal servant of the Lord, they can't understand the Lord. It's not possible. So even in Krishna consciousness, we should always be very careful to remember that position of servant. I was just reading on is it Gopinath Prabhu. He puts out the website or the different excerpts from Maharaj's lectures. And he takes little parts of the lecture and puts it on this not at the website, but it's it's on the devotee internet or something. I don't know what they call it. So there was one I was just reading the other day. Ranath Maharaj says, when you first come to Krishna consciousness, then you think, yes, I'm Das, 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 Anudas. And then after you stay a while, then you become Das, Anudas. And then you stay longer, then you become Das. And then after a while, then you become Prabhu. And then the last stage is then you compete with Mahaprabhu. Thought that was really quite deep. Sometimes after a while we start being around devotional life for a while and we start forgetting a little bit about our position as servant. And it's easy because as you get more and more facility, or if you get some position, or if you get some control of others, you can start forgetting that. But always remember that. And there's one of the faults in bhakti, as mentioned by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Madhurya Kandambini, is called Ranga Tarangini. Ranga Tarangini. Ranga Tarangini means to accept the externals as one's advancement in Krishna consciousness. I'm advanced because I'm a guru. I'm advanced because I'm a sannyasi. I'm advanced because I have some control. I'm advanced because I'm this or that or that or that. Advancement is in the heart. Advancement is based on how much one is detached from material sense gratification and absorbed in their devotional service to the Lord. That is advancement, not something external. We should never be fooled by that. So as one progresses or gains in Krishna consciousness, one should always remember that I'm always servant. I can never be anything else. I can be a good servant, I can be a mediocre servant, I can be a not so good servant, but I'm always a servant. And it's not something menial or it's not something less. It's actually the most glorious thing to be a servant, really. To be a servant is the most glorious thing. And again, as we see in the life of the Lord Himself, the Lord likes to become a servant of His devotees. He drove the chariot for Arjuna. When his name Parthasarthi is chanted, the Lord becomes very happy because it connects him as being the servant of His devotees. He likes to serve. He takes the position of the servant of His devotees. So He's showing us by His example, but at the same time, He's also showing that here is the topmost position. To be somehow or other a servant. So we want to develop that mood in every situation. But Maya is there, and Maya is always dictating something different, especially if there's some type of position or some type of achievement. But of course here, Radha Gopinath, the mood is very nice. I had some very quality association with Niranjana Maharaj yesterday, and he was speaking to one young lady, and he was explaining that here in Radha Gopinath temple, the mood is that everyone is trying to give. The devotees here are trying to give, they're not trying to take. So he was seeing that here the mood is nice, that everyone has that mood of giving. And that's what we feel when we come here. We always feel that the devotees are so loving, they're so caring, they're so giving, they're giving their time, they're giving their energy. So that mood is developed nice here. But still we have to be careful to maintain that mood. When things are small, things are easy to maintain. But as projects become bigger and more, what we say, developed, then that simplicity and that mood of service can get lost in what we say when things get more bigger. And then sometimes we see there becomes competition or the wrong type of competition. So you have to be careful. To always remember that the best position is just to become the servant. And of course, the servant of the Lord is our eternal constitutional position, but the Lord accepts us as His servant when we accept our position as servant of His servants. Then we actually can be accepted by the Lord as His servant. And when we accept our position as servant of His servants. So therefore, service to the Vaishnavas, service to the people in general, is actually the way to attract the mercy of the Lord. Service to the Vaishnavas, service to the people in general by preaching, by assisting, by doing whatever we can. And we see this is the nature of love. When you serve someone and someone is pleased, or someone becomes happy by that service, or they gain something by that service, you also feel satisfied. You also feel happy. You felt like you offered something positive. Of course, in the material world, the opposite is there. Because everyone is envious of everyone else, the material world means envy. Therefore, if people may serve each other, but it's for my own gain. And therefore, a lot of times when people are happy, other people feel unhappy. And when people are unhappy, people feel happy. Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that this is the nature of envy. Envy means that when you're unhappy, I'm happy, and when you're happy, I'm unhappy. That's envy, yeah. But a devotee knows that if I can serve another and make them happy through that service, then I'm also becoming happy. This is Krishna consciousness. So we try to somehow put ourselves in the position of being a servant as best as we can. It's difficult because the mind and the conditioned nature is always telling us something different, but we should always be aware of that position, servant. It says that there's one statement that the servant of a king enjoys on the same level as the king. So, in that way, that simply by being the servant of the Lord and the servant of the Lord's devotees, one achieves the ultimate happiness. Because that is the nature of love, and that is the nature of our position. Because we are eternally connected with the Supreme Lord in devotion, therefore, when the object of who we serve is happy or satisfied or pleased, we also become pleased. The verse is, when you water the root of the tree, all the branches, the twigs, the flowers, the fruits, anything connected to the root also receives the benefit of the watering process. So actually, when we serve others and we serve Krishna, we're actually serving ourselves. We don't think like that, but actually we are. We're serving our own best interests by serving others. And when we try to enjoy separately, we're actually not serving our own best interests. We're actually getting away from our own best interests. So this, therefore, the material world is simply a reflection of the spiritual world, a perverted reflection. What is night for the conditioned soul is time of the waking for the self-introspective sage. And what is awakening for the materialist, what is night for the self-introspective stage is a time of awakening for the conditioned soul. So it's opposite. Completely opposite. So the materialists are trying to enjoy, the devotees are trying to enjoy also, but they know that enjoyment means to serve. Enjoyment, real happiness is to become a servant. Real satisfaction becomes a servant. Like that. Okay, very simple point, but it's very important to emphasize these things because Maya is always there. Even within spiritual circles, we have to realize that Maya is working somehow to make us forget what is our position and what is our relationship with the Supreme Lord. Okay, so I'll stop there. Any questions or comments? Anyone? Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
You were saying that it is not the position of the human being to work hard. We see so many great acharyas like Srila Prabhupada who work so hard. So how can we understand this? That it's not correct to work hard in a material sense, but it is good to work hard spiritually. Could you elaborate on this theme?
Well, I wouldn't exactly say that is work. The more you are in love with something or someone, more natural you are spontaneously enthusiastic to express that love in different ways. So that's the nature of love, or the nature of the soul in connected with the Supreme Lord, that it inspires one to do so many things, even at the expense of one's own health, even at the expense of one's own life, that a person will offer everything. And it's not something done, what we say, artificially or arduously. It's done naturally. It springs from the nature of the love for the object. That's all. The opposite can't be true. People say, "Well, I have so much love for God, but what do you do?" Well, I don't really do so much, but you still love God. No, your love is shown by your life as example, and those who are willing to give up make personal sacrifices in order to serve the interests of the beloved, we know that actually is their greatest happiness. Actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that the greatest happiness that I achieve is the difficulties that I experience in your devotional service. Sometimes we say to our preachers or our leaders, take it easy, take care of your health, slow down, but they can't. They just can't do it because that's the nature of love. They want to give as much as they can. So as much as much as they try to do that, still the nature of love, wanting to satisfy the beloved, impels them to continue to give themselves as much as possible. And that's the way it'll always be. And that's not work. That's not work. Even Prabhupada said in Krishna consciousness there's no work. There's a little endeavor, but there's no work. Yeah? Is it really hard to chant Hare Krishna? No, it's not work. Take prasad, that's not hard. Dance. People work so hard just to get money so they can go out and eat and dance, right? We just do it anyway. Right? We're doing it every day, having nice prasadam, dancing and singing and reading nice stories, and people just work all week so they can have a few hours just to do some of that same stuff in a mundane way. I remember when we used to go out in the West, we still do that. On New Year's Eve, everyone gets intoxicated on New Year's Eve, and they usually gather in public places. And they're all, drunk and falling around and just laughing and making, some silly statements or sometimes fighting. So devotees go out on Harinam, New Year's Eve, like 12 o'clock, midnight. So we're chanting and dancing, and all they just see is, wow, these guys are really having a party. Let's join them. So they come. A lot of them, they come, they join. And they start dancing in their own, way, whatever way they do it. And they say, you guys really know how to party. We do this every day. So this is Krishna consciousness. Any other questions? No? Okay. We'll stop here. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Sorry, Chandramouli Maharaj ki jai. Hare Krishna. So, I think Maharaj wonderfully covered in his lecture the basic point that we are not controller and we are forced to work because of enjoyment mentality. And we are not meant for working. I think Maharaj very, very nicely stressed the hard work is not required. Even when the question is asked about the working of the devotees, he says it's not work, it's an endeavor for share the love of God. So he gave example Avanti Brahmana And also he gave a very good reference of His Holiness Radhana Swami Maharaj, saying that servant. Initially, we come to Krishna consciousness, we think that we are servant of servant. Slowly, we become Prabhu, and finally, says we become Mahaprabhu. So that controlling mentality is there in us. So that's what Maharaj throughout the session is, stressing on that. And also, advancement in Krishna consciousness doesn't depend on our external positions, wherever it is, authority or whatever it is, how much we serve. So that's most important here. I think Maharaj concludes very nicely, saying that we have developed that servant mood. Hare Krishna. So devotees can share your realization, comments, if any, please go ahead. Just somebody can try unmute. Just make sure that we are able to unmute. Are anybody able to unmute?
Yes, Guruji.
Okay. So others can give please go ahead, give your comments or realization, please. Radharani Mataji says not able to unmute. 1 second. Now, Radharani Mataji, can you check now?
Yes, Prabhu. Now we can do it.
Sorry.
I don't have a question, but we can do it.
Share comes realization, Mataji. Comments, realization, please.
Hare Krishna.
Shokatma Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu. Prabhu, one realization today I got is that, even a person who has come to the spiritual path, still he is, having the mentality of this, enjoyment. That means conditional mind. So maybe the Maharaj has gave the examples of one who takes the position as a president, secretary, or senior Vaishnava, or some position in the temple. She will have the kind of desire to satisfy his senses. So that means to say that only a fraction of change that we can see even after coming to the spiritual path may not be 100% what we contemplate, that by coming to this path we can have the coming out of these material desires. But Maharaj also concluded stating that the real spiritual path is that coming to the state of detachment to the material activities. So that is something which I realized.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. I think the practicing devotees, we should be more attentive to this area, because that's where generally we end up and get into trouble. Thank you, Prabhu. Others, any comments, realization, please. Okay, so no comments, no realization. So then we'll end with the Vaishnava Pranam. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubheva patitana pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namanam. Ananta koti Vaishnava vrinda ki jai. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. His Holiness Chandramouli Maharaj ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta vrinda ki jai.
I got Premanand. Hari
Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam, Prabhu.
See you all tomorrow, 7:15. Hare Krishna.
Dandavat Pranam, Prabhu.